Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would finally do an updated pregnancy update. It's been a while and I wanted to try to do it like every month or so, but I'm a couple weeks behind, mostly because of the holidays and there's just been a lot going on. I felt like I needed some time to process how I was feeling and how everything is actually going before I said it in a video. So I feel like I'm at a good place right now where I can share where we're at. Everything is pretty good, honestly. I feel like my health is in a pretty good place. It's just always hard for me when we get towards the end of pregnancy because there's so many emotions, so many fears, so many things to worry about. So it's really hard for me, but overall, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. I am 34 weeks in one day when I'm filming this. There's a lot to fill you in on, and so I'm just gonna kind of go through everything I can think of at this point, and it kind of is all spanning over the last month or 6 weeks or so. So in my last pregnancy update, I was talking about the gestational diabetes, the glucose test, and my plan for that. I was gonna test at home with my own tester, and I have been doing that. And I wanted to update you guys on how that whole process went. If you are considering skipping the glucose test or you have gestational diabetes, this might be interesting to you. So I skipped the glucose test. I did not do the 1 hour or the 3 hour for many reasons. I just didn't feel good about it. I didn't think it was going to be helpful, and I didn't feel good about fasting and putting that sugar in my body. And so that was my choice. And it's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. But I told my doctor I would test at home, and I bought a tester and test strips and all of that, and I was prepared for that. And the first doctor I talked to said, that's fine. It actually kind of makes sense to me that you would do that. And that's totally fine with me. He said, just test every couple days and just keep tabs on your blood sugar. And if anything looks out of line, then we can look at it. He was super chill, and that gave me a lot of hope and a lot of positivity. And I was like, okay, this will be great. I've never routinely tested my blood sugar. My sister has type 1. I have a lot of people in my family that have type 2. I have Hashimoto's. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm at a higher risk for getting gestational diabetes. But I could also just be pre-type 2 diabetic. I could have a slight insulin resistance. I could have a lot of other things going on besides just gestational diabetes. So I thought it would be really helpful for me to see what my numbers look like, to just see how I'm doing in that regard. So I did it a few times. I went in for my next appointment a few weeks later, and I met with a different doctor. In my office, they try to have you meet with different doctors every time because there's like 6 doctors on staff. This new doctor said, that's not gonna work. I need you to test 4 times a day for 2 weeks, fill out this detailed log of everything, and bring it back to me. So that stressed me out a little bit because that's a lot of work and a lot of stress on me to test 4 times a day. But I said, okay, I will do that for 2 weeks. I can do that. They said, don't change anything. Don't eat healthier. Don't, try to minimize your carbs. Don't change your lifestyle. Just live your life, but test the 4 times in the morning and then 2 hours after each meal, and we'll just see how it looks. So I was willing to do that, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was just trying to kind of keep tabs on it to make sure I didn't see some crazy numbers, right? So I wasn't too stressed about it, but it was going to be a lot of work. So I did the 2 weeks, went back in, saw a different doctor this time, and that doctor looked at all of my numbers and my chart of everything I was eating and everything, and she said, well, you have a few fasting numbers that are like a couple over and a few dinner numbers that are a couple over, so you fail, so you have gestational diabetes. There's no way to take it back. It's on paper now. And she was just very quick to diagnose me without asking any questions, and it seemed almost like she was glad to diagnose me because I refused the test. That's just the vibe that I got. I thought it was interesting because she never gave me a prescription for a tester, test strips, lancets, anything, right? So I didn't have any prescriptions for anything needed for gestational diabetes. She did not refer me to a class, even give me a handout on what gestational diabetes is. She just said, you have it, it's gonna be on your chart now, and don't do anything differently though. Just keep living your life and test 4 times a day for the rest of the pregnancy. Now, I would think that if someone actually has gestational diabetes and you're concerned about the baby and the mom's health, you would do a little bit more than just say, keep doing what you're doing. Because she said, if you have gestational diabetes, your baby could be really big and it could have underdeveloped lungs. So she was saying she's concerned about me and the baby, but I really got no help with anything. And then of course, when I go back in the next time, I see a different doctor. It's different doctors every time. And I think it was that next time I saw the original doctor I saw, who was super chill and super nice about it. I need to back up a little bit because there's an important piece of this puzzle that I'm forgetting. And that was the reason why my numbers, some of them were a little bit high, is because I was not really doing it correctly. I didn't have a lot of guidance. I was kind of just doing whatever I thought made sense. And I was told, live your life as normal. I do not fast for 2 hours 3 times a day. I'm pregnant. I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking orange juice and coconut water drinks. I'm trying to get in tons of potassium. I'm snacking all the time, trying to get enough calories and protein. I do not fast for 6 hours of my day. So there was definitely times in there where I was still eating. Sometimes I take a while to eat breakfast because I have to get my kids ready throughout the morning and it's a long process. And then I'm drinking my coffee and stuff. So I just wasn't stressing too much about fasting during those windows when I should have been, because if I would have fully fasted and not had a single sip of coffee or anything after the 2 hour mark, then my numbers would have been like way below. And so the next couple weeks after I got diagnosed, I did that. I was like super careful because I talked to my sister and she's like, yeah, you're not going to get accurate numbers if you're having any type of carbs in that window. So I was super careful and my numbers were really low, way below the benchmark for gestational diabetes. I genuinely feel like I don't have gestational diabetes. So my next appointment was with that original doctor that I met with, who was super chill and nice and flexible. And he looked at my numbers and he said, yeah, it doesn't look like you have anything to worry about, but it's on your chart now. Guess we can't take it back. So he said, you still need to test, but maybe just test once a day. Because I told him I'm super stressed out about this. I want to eat more. And I don't think I have gestational diabetes, and I'm having to have all these windows where I can't eat. I also can't eat for an hour after I wake up because I take my thyroid medicine. I just want to be able to eat more and snack more and not stress about, am I going to get a number that's anywhere close to 120? Because at this point, even if it's close, I'm thinking they're going to think I have something to worry about when I know I don't. So I was just stressing way too much about it. And I was like, can we just do something to like minimize this stress and the effort that I'm putting in, because I don't think I have gestational diabetes. I have way bigger things to worry about in terms of my blood pressure. So I explained that to the doctor and he said, just test once a day. So I said, cool. Did that for a few days, go back in the next week, meet with a different doctor. And they said, no, that's not going to work. You have to test 4 times a day because it's in your chart that you have gestational diabetes. You have to do that forever. That's where we're at, even though all my numbers are great. And honestly, I rarely ever get a number that's over like 105 and the threshold is 120. So I'm sure I'm fine. It's just I put myself in this position because I elected to test and show them my numbers. If I would have just said, I'm not doing the glucose test, that's it, I would have been fine because they don't have anything to go off of. They couldn't diagnose me. But I decided to bring in my numbers. I think next time I would probably do the same thing, but I would just not show them my numbers and I would keep track of it myself because I feel good about knowing if there's a problem or not. If you don't feel good about knowing when there's a problem, then you should definitely show the doctors your numbers or just do the glucose test if that's not an issue for you. I'm not suggesting you do what I am doing, but for me personally, that's how I would do it differently next time. So that's enough about that. That has been a huge stress over the last 6 weeks. In my brain, I'm thinking all of this added stress and anxiety has probably not helped my health at this point in the pregnancy because I completely over stress about things and I have a ton of anxiety about confronting people when I disagree with them. And so every appointment, I was just completely freaking out. So one of the last appointments that I had where I was like, I know I'm gonna have to tell them I need to test less, I need to worry about this less because it's really overwhelming me. I was so anxious about that appointment. I went in and my blood pressure was really high. It was like 160 over 95, something like that, which is way higher than it's ever been. It was kind of starting to creep up a little bit, but not anywhere in the dangerous zone, but that was pretty high, and they took it again at the end of the appointment. It was like 145 over 85, like a little high still, but not terrible. But because of that, that's putting me in the gestational hypertension range. And so I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I have higher blood pressures, but there's nothing else really concerning going on. I don't have a high amount of protein in my urine. I don't have scary looking blood work. So it would just be considered a blood pressure issue, which is gestational hypertension, not preeclampsia at this point. But it's hard for me to not blame myself for putting myself in all of these stressful situations that could potentially increase my blood pressure, and like wonder what would my numbers have been if I wasn't completely stressed out about the gestational diabetes that isn't even a thing. Because of the diagnosis of gestational diabetes and gestational hypertension, I am doing weekly appointments, and I'm doing twice a week NSTs. So a few days ago, I had my first NST, sat there for like 30 minutes, and everything looked great with the baby. She moves a ton, heart rate looks great, no issues with her at all. But they took my blood pressure at the beginning when I first got there, and it was really low, like the lowest I've seen it in months, the lowest I've ever seen. Like when I do it at home every day, I was really surprised. It was like, I think 130 over 75 or something, which I never get a bottom number that low. So I was like, that seems off. And she did it in my right arm, which I always do my left arm. So at the end of the NST, I said, can you just do it again in the left arm? They always do my left arm, and I've never seen a number like that. So it just kind of threw me off. I was like, if that's where I'm at, that's great. But I just want to know. And I didn't feel super stressed. Usually when I have high blood pressure, my face gets really hot. I did not feel like that. I was like, I don't feel like it's really high, but I just want to make sure, like, if that's my number, cool, I'm good with that. So she checked the left, and it was like 160 over 100. So she said, all right, let's just check it again in 10 minutes. It was like 155 over 92 or something, still high. So at that point, they talked to a doctor, and they said, well, we can't have two readings that high, so we have to send you to labor and delivery. And this was like a couple days ago. I think it was 2 days ago on Tuesday. So I had to go there, and I'm mentally prepared to have to spend like 24 hours, because that's what I've done with my daughter and my son during the pregnancy. At some point, I usually have to go spend like a day at labor and delivery, and they will check my blood pressure constantly for a whole 24 hours, do a 24-hour urine, all that stuff. So I had a full overnight bag packed. I drive on over there and bring my whole bag in. I'm like, all right, let's just do this then, I guess. And they get me all hooked up to everything, and they start taking my blood pressure, but they're checking the right arm again, and it's really low. That's weird. And they're like, yeah, you're fine, you can go. Like after 2 hours, they're like, you can go, you're good. And my protein in my urine looked like I had a little bit, but it was not to the preeclampsia range. They did blood work, nothing looked alarming there. So they said, you're good. But it feels weird to me that every time they do the left arm, which has been every single time up until this point, it's pretty high. And the couple times they've done my right, it's been weirdly low. And so that's what they went off of, and they're like, you're good. So at home, I've been checking both arms now. I'll do like one arm, and then 10 minutes later, I'll do the other arm. And they seem pretty even at home, like 135 over 85, like a little bit high, but not concerning. So I don't really know what to make of that. And I'm concerned now that every time I go in, I'm gonna have high blood pressure because I'm nervous and I'm kind of expecting it. And then do they send me to labor and delivery every time? That's a lot, because I have NSTs twice a week. So twice a week, every week, we're gonna be having this conversation. So I don't know what's gonna come of that. But the good news is I have a little bit of protein in my urine, but not a ton. I did do a 24-hour urine last week, just to kind of see where I'm at. And I feel like it was a little bit early, because at this point, I know I probably don't have a ton of protein, because we've been doing like the little dips in just like a cup, and it hasn't shown a lot. So I figured I was probably fine. But we did a 24-hour, and it was like 168. And if you get to 300, you have preeclampsia. So there was definitely some in there, but not a ton, which it could be higher now. It's probably more around 200, 250, because it sounded like it was around 200 when I was at labor and delivery. So we're probably creeping towards that point, but as of right now, it's not there. And of course, we want to keep an eye on blood work too, because I had HELLP syndrome with my son. So if you start to see weird things with your blood, like low platelets and stuff like that, that could be an indicator that you are going down the HELLP syndrome route. And that goes very quick. That could be like 12 hours, 24 hours, and things look really bad really quickly. So it always makes me feel better to just do blood work every once in a while, like at least once a week at this point, just to see if anything's trending in a certain direction. I am definitely gaining a lot more weight at this point, and my swelling, it's so interesting. This time is so different. With my son, I had a ton of swelling, both legs, face, hands, everything. With my daughter, not too bad of swelling, a little bit in my ankles, but it was the same in both legs, just a little bit. This time, I feel like I have more swelling than my daughter. So somewhere in between my son and my daughter. I have it in my hands, my face, my legs, but it's mostly in my left leg, which they said is normal because it could be the baby laying like on that side and compressing things on, like going to that leg more, which has been a consistent thing that I've seen the whole pregnancy. But now as the swelling is increasing and increasing, it's very noticeable that that leg is like pretty swollen, pretty visually swollen, and then the right one looks almost not swollen at all. So that's frustrating because it just stresses me out. I don't know, to see the difference, but they said it's fine. I'm trying to put my feet up a couple times throughout the day and just not wear like super tight shoes or super tight socks. I'm trying to just kind of let things flow and not get stuck in my foot. Drinking a ton of water has been helping me. I can definitely see the benefit of that on days when I drink a ton of water. And I also feel like the days when I'm super stressed out, when I had a doctor's appointment and things were not going right and I had difficult conversations and I could feel my blood pressure being really high, then the swelling was increased too. So I'm definitely seeing a correlation there. So I'm just trying on the days in between appointments to just kind of stay chill, because I know most likely everything is going to work out fine. It will, because we're keeping such a close eye on things. I am checking my own blood pressures frequently, and I even check my protein at home sometimes too, just to make me feel better. And so I'm not really stressed about things quickly going south because I have such a close eye on things. It's mostly just the interactions with the doctors that just really stress me out for some reason. And them just feeling like they're not listening to me and they're not taking me seriously. The next conversation I need to have at my next appointment, which is actually tomorrow, I'm going to do an NST and an actual appointment with someone, because half of my NSTs are just NSTs and then I go home. But I do have an appointment tomorrow. I want to talk about potentially getting a pico dressing for my C-section. No one's talked to me at all at this point about the actual C-section, like what to expect, what they can provide, any of those things. So I am going to ask for a pico dressing if they can, because I feel like that really helped me with my daughter to heal quicker, and it just made me feel better. Like there's definitely a decreased chance of infection. I also have a few requests for the C-section and my stay at the hospital. I don't want my baby to get a bath at all. Just things like that I want to make sure we're all on the same page with. And so I have no idea who's doing my C-section at this point, but I feel like I need to have this in writing and give it to them or bring it to my C-section. I just want to discuss like what's the best route to make sure everyone understands what I want to happen, because who knows where I'm going to be at mentally and what drugs I'm going to be on. And my husband, I think, kind of knows how I feel about everything, but he's very go with the flow. Like if things don't go the way we talked about, he's going to be like, it's fine. But I care a lot more about certain things. So I want it to be like in writing somewhere. So that's the next conversation I need to have. And hopefully my blood pressures aren't terrible, so I can actually just do the appointment and go home. That would be lovely. But at this point, I do want to try to do weekly updates if I can, because this is the point in the pregnancy that there's a lot of information and a lot of things changing, and I want to remember all of this. I have been watching my past pregnancy updates, and it's so helpful to see exactly where I was at which stage, to kind of just compare and like feel like, okay, this is probably normal for me at this point. I did want to do a bump update because I did not do one last time, and obviously we are a lot bigger than the last time I gave you guys a bump update. I'm sure I will get a little bit bigger than this, but I am pretty big and my belly button's like almost flat. My belly button never pops out, and I would love it to because I think that's cool, but it never does, but it's like almost flat. But I'm 34 weeks and I'm thinking I'm probably gonna make it to 37, hopefully. They say 39 if there's like no issues, but I think at this point I've had a couple of high blood pressures and I'm sure my protein will eventually get to 300. That's just what I'm assuming because we're kind of trending that way. I think as soon as it gets there, then they probably won't let me go past like 37 or 38. So I will definitely keep you guys updated on that if we schedule an earlier C-section. But let's do a bump update, and I think that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any comments, leave them down below because I would love to talk to you if you are having similar experiences or concerns, because this is my 3rd time and I thought it would be a lot easier because I knew what to expect, but the gestational diabetes thing really like threw a wrench in all my plans and is making it a lot more difficult. But in terms of, I think, my blood pressure, I feel less nervous about that because I kind of know I have it under control and I'm keeping an eye on it. And so I know when to go in if there's an issue. I know if I'm having like weird pains in my chest or my side or really bad headaches, like I know to go in. So I don't have any of those symptoms. So I feel pretty good about most things. It's just, like I said, the interactions with the doctors stress me out so much. All right, let's get to a bump shot real quick and I'll see you guys in the next one.